Eleni Papadakis rarely needed an alarm clock. At dawn, a soft, papery buzzing seeped through the skylight of her Plaka apartment, the communal hum of 8 wooden hives rising like a hymn above the rumble of Athens' traffic. Eleni, Athens's most sought-after herbalist, had built her rooftop apiary when neighbouring balconies were still cluttered with satellite dishes. By the time most Athenians woke, she had already visited each colony, whispering to the queens as she inspected frames and snipped herbs sprouting from clay pots lined along the parapet. Monday was her favourite market day. She set off for her shop, Phytocardia, with a basket of thyme honey, dried marjoram, and sachets of jasmine. The shop, tucked behind the Roman agora, drew cafe owners needing chamomile, tourists hunting for oregano, and grandmothers sworn to home remedies. Eleni knew all their ailments and most of their secrets, without ever needing to ask. Botany had taught her that clues lurked in residue: a fleck of soil on a shoe, a dusting of pollen on a collar. She trusted plants more than she trusted words. Mid-morning sunlight poured through Phytocardia's front window as she arranged jars on a cedar shelf. Just as she balanced the last jar, the bell tinkled, and in shuffled Gerasimos, a silversmith from Monastiraki. "Kalimera, Eleni," he said, gin-clear eyes glinting behind gold spectacles. From his pocket he produced a sealed sachet. "Your pollen kit, finished as promised." Eleni grinned. Months earlier, she had asked him to design a miniature brass sieve and collection vials so she could analyze pollen trapped in her honey and beeswax. Authenticating her products mattered. Olive blossom pollen in Attic honey was expected. Lavender pollen from Provence would raise eyebrows. "Efcharisto," she said, tucking the kit inside her apron. "If you ever need propolis for your joints, let me know." He waved her off. "My joints are young compared to my bills." Then his tone shifted. "Keep an eye out. Counterfeiters are busy again. Nikos at the Antiquities Bureau says forged tetradrachms are flooding the flea market." Eleni pictured the sleek silver coins, Athena's profile on one side, an owl on the reverse. Tourists loved them. Genuine pieces, centuries old, cost a fortune, so fakes circulated each summer like mosquitoes. She frowned. "They're back." "Stronger than ever," Gerasimos replied. "They've even fooled veteran dealers." He left, the door chime echoing like a warning. Still the day carried on with the usual rhythm: steaming cups of mountain tea, customers debating whether to buy Greek sage or Cretan dittany. By closing time, fatigue settled in her shoulders. She locked up and climbed the stairs to her roof. Twilight spilled rosy gold on the Acropolis. Bees drifted lazily, heavy with nectar. She slid a frame from Hive 3, scraped a narrow ribbon of honey into a bowl, and used her new sieve to drain out bee bread, fermented pollen. She placed a few grains on a glass slide, then carried it inside to her tiny kitchenette, where a student microscope perched next to her olive wood breadboard. Under 400x magnification, the grains dazzled. Spheres pocked with tiny spines, others shaped like stars. Yet one cluster stopped her breath. Deep umber, minutely ridged, it didn't match any local flora she'd catalogued. She referenced her dog-eared guidebook. The pollen belonged to Cistus creticus, pink rock rose, but tinged with a rare genetic marker from Crete's western gorges, nearly 600 kilometers away. Her bees had never travelled farther than Mount Hymettus. She pushed back from the table. If the bees hadn't flown to the pollen must have come to them. How? A chill drifted through the shutters. She remembered the silversmith's warning. Was someone using her rooftop, without her knowledge, for illicit work involving plant material from Crete. She jotted notes, then resolved to collect fresh samples at dawn. The next morning she lifted a waxy brood frame and caught a faint metallic aroma. Hot iron, like a forge. Odd. The nearest blacksmith was blocks away. She scraped more bee bread, added it to an ethanol vial, and headed to the University of Athens Botany Lab, where her former professor, Dr. Angelopoulos, still tolerated her unannounced visits. He peered through a binocular microscope. Plenty of cystis indeed. And, wait, this is interesting. He adjusted the focus. Do you see those smooth ellipsoids? That's laurel, but with a chemical scorch pattern, almost as if the pollen has been heat-treated. Heat-treated, Eleni repeated. Exposed to high temperatures, yes, not naturally occurring. Who's broiling laurel pollen in central Athens? Eleni's mind raced. Bees gather whatever is airborne. If someone nearby was burning laurel leaves, perhaps to smoke-age metal, residual pollen could ride the heat plume and settle on her rooftop. She thanked her mentor and dashed toward Monastiraki, weaving past tourists licking pistachio gelato. At the flea market stalls, shiny silver coins glinted like fish scales. A plump Australian couple haggled over a tetradrachm advertised as classical period guaranteed. Eleni leaned closer. A faint herbal scent clung to the coin, burnt laurel again. She purchased the piece, earning an approving nod from the vendor who boxed it in velvet. She marched straight to the Antiquities Bureau, where her longtime friend, Officer Kostas Manos, sat nursing a sesame kaluri. He broke into a crumb-filled grin. Eleni Moo, what drags my favourite apiarist into bureaucracy hell? She placed the coin in his palm. Smell it. He lifted an eyebrow. To detect authenticity by aroma? Still, he obliged. Laurel? Yes, I think it's connected to the new batch of forgeries. My bees have been picking up pollen contaminated by the same process. Kostas puffed his cheeks. You're suggesting a criminal enterprise is close enough to your apartment that your bees are sampling the air? Closer than close. She told him about the heat-scarred pollen and the metallic odour at her hives. Kostas leaned back, chair creaking. Counterfeiting coins involves heating them in organic materials, sometimes honey or wax, to patinate the surface. Looks older that way. If they're using laurel smoke, that could explain the pollen. Any idea where the workshop could be? Eleni pictured rooftops visible from hers, pastel blocks, grapevines crawling along trellises, a handful of cafes. She recalled one building across the alley, the Golden Stag Taverna. Recently renovated, its roof had sprouted a large boxy shed. Each night, faint clanking echoed from it, soon muffled by bouzouki music. I have a hunch. She gave Kostas the address. He drummed his fingers. We'll need evidence. My captain won't issue a warrant based on floral gossip. Can you get me something stronger? A plan unfurled in Eleni's mind. Risky, but bees had taught her that courage began small, like a grain of pollen. That evening she donned black trousers, a charcoal hoodie, and sneakers soft as cat paws. At 2 a.m., with the city sighing in sleep, she slipped onto her roof, carrying a smoker and veil. She extended a plank toward her neighbour's terrace, tiptoeing across like a mountaineer. Moonlight haloed the shed on Golden Stag's roof. A faint glow leaked from its slatted window. She crawled forward, lifted the veil of her beekeeper hat like a novice nun, and peered inside. 3 men hunched over an anvil. One heated coin blanks with a propane torch. Another dunked them into a bubbling pot of beeswax mixed with olive oil and crushed bay leaves. Laurel. The third man, wearing latex gloves, rolled each coin in something granular, powdered rock rose pollen perhaps, from a bowl on the table. Aging dust, she murmured. When cooled, the coins looked centuries old. The men then stamped them with Athena's owl. Eleni eased back, just as her foot nudged a loose tile. It clattered. Inside, the men froze. She flattened herself, heart thrashing. After several breaths, someone slid open the shed door. Footsteps approached the parapet. A flashlight swept across the tiles, passing inches from her face before turning away. The door slammed shut. She exhaled shakily and crawled home. At first light, she marched to Costas. I saw everything. They're using beeswax and laurel smoke. I can get you a sample. Costas scrubbed his stubble. That'll help, but a direct link to illegal minting? We need to tie their product to what's sold in the market. Eleni produced the coin she'd bought. Do a metallurgical assay. I guarantee traces of laurel resin and Cretan pollen remain in the grooves. Costas nodded slowly. Okay, give me 12 hours. While he won bureaucratic battles, Eleni kept busy. She brewed a potent tisane of rock rose and thyme, then visited Gerasimos the silversmith. She explained everything in hushed tones. He scratched his chin. I can test the coin's patina for organic compounds. Bring any others you can find. By sunset, Costas called. Lab results confirm laurel resin and an unorthodox tin-silver alloy. We're raiding the taverna tonight. Want to watch? I'll bring the honey, she quipped, exhilarated. Night blanketed Plaka. Police in plain clothes swarmed discreetly around Golden Stag. Eleni, perched on her roof, felt like a queen bee commanding a colony of drones. When Costas signalled, officers charged upstairs. Minutes later, clanking ceased, replaced by shouts and the metallic clink of handcuffs. Eleni hurried down the stairwell, arriving as Costas escorted the 3 forgers out. Their ringleader, burly with a shaved head, glowered at her. Crazy herb woman sent the cops. Your bees will die for this. Costas shoved him forward. Threatening livestock now? Add it to the file? Inside the shed, coin blanks littered the table, each dusted with fine brown grains. Eleni scooped a sample into a vial. Pollen as evidence, she mused. Who would have thought? Costas grinned. You did. A week later, newspapers hailed the bust. Herbalist's honey cracks coin ring. Tourists flocked to Phytocardia, not only for oregano, but to gawk at the detective in an apron. Eleni found the attention embarrassing. She preferred talking basil over fame. Yet for once, she allowed herself pride. One balmy afternoon, Gerasimos arrived with a silver amulet shaped like a honeybee. A thank you gift, he said. You saved our reputation. Authentic coins will fetch a fair price again. Eleni clasped the pendant around her neck. It was teamwork, mine, the police, and the bees. That evening, she climbed to her rooftop sanctuary. The hives were humming with renewed vigor. She removed the lid of Hive 3 and inhaled deep. No metallic tang, no burnt laurel, just warm beeswax, summer herbs, and city dusk. She fed each colony a treat of sugared thymery water. As the sun melted behind the Parthenon, she whispered, Efcharisto. The bees answered in gentle applause, a chorus that told her all was well, for now. 3 months passed without incident. October draped Athens in cool breezes, and Plaka's lanes filled with saffron-fringed leaves. Eleni prepared for the Winter Remedies seminar she would teach at the Cultural Centre. One afternoon, a parcel arrived from the Antiquities Bureau, an envelope of pollen slides and a note from Costas. Thought you'd want these for your lecture. Case closed yesterday. The forgers pled guilty. She sorted the slides on her work table: untreated thyme pollen, heat-scarred laurel, Crete rock rose. Together they formed a botanical crime timeline. She smiled, imagining skeptical students astonished that something lighter than dust could topple a criminal operation. As she mounted the final slide, a new sound drifted through the shutters, deeper than buzzing, faintly hissing. She stepped onto the terrace. A cloud of grey smoke billowed from 2 rooftops away. Her nose twitched. Sage and myrtle, not dangerous but unusual. Maybe a new restaurant experimenting with smoked olives, she reasoned. Still, she fetched her brass sieve and held it aloft, letting soot settle. She'd analyze it later. After all, Pollen never lied, and Athens was a city layered with secrets. One sniff might save history again. Inside, she poured herself chamomile tea, crumbled a spoon of rooftop honey into the cup, and toasted to the ancient maxim: small clues, great truths. The bees hummed agreeably through the wall, as if promising more mysteries and more solutions, waiting in the air between wings.